very important to recognize that the laws of physics do apply. So when someone says 65 miles an hour, a gallon, and they majored in English Lit in high school or in college, I think they ought to start asking some people who know something about it. So, in my opinion, we ought to have 5-year milestones and say, well, how is the industry progressing? I think we also ought to think about, instead of having a 62 mile a gallon bogey, what you're going to do if you're not careful, and this is the pragmatics of it. You have to think, in the end, it's about the manufacturing base and the jobs in this country. One segment of the market where American automakers still dominate are in trucks. And we're not talking about the urban cowboy driving down Constitution Avenue to the EPA. We're talking about a guy out in Minnesota that has to have dual axles, the truck's tires in the back, and heavy duty, and that's not going to get you any 62 miles a gallon because you can't pull up trees trunks, and you can't load rocks and clear in the farm. And so I think it ought to be specific to a segment of the market. Otherwise, you're going to, depending on the portfolio, where you're strong and where you're creating profits, you're going to, I think you could trip into a bad situation where you hamstring companies like GM, Ford, Chrysler. And I don't think that's what the government's trying to do, but that may be the law of unintended consequences kicks in.
What the reputation that GM got in Ford and Chrysler got in Washington over the years was just say no to everything Washington wanted. And they sort of lost all credibility with Washington. How do you rebuild that relationship now?
I think that's precisely how you go about it. You say, look, I'm not going to just say no. I have to have an intelligent discussion based on logic and rationale. And you have to recognize two things. The law of physics, it does matter. If you have heavy-duty trucks, you're not going to have good mileage. Now, you can improve it with diesel, and you can do a number of things if you ought to. And you should have electric assist. You should do everything you can to make it efficient. At the same time, being a good corporate citizen, engage in a dialogue that says, recognize the technology and measure it in your milestone sort of goal, and at the same time recognize that there are certain of us that have a broader spectrum of vehicles, including trucks. And if you give us a 62 or whatever the number happens to be, 70, 50, recognize that in your portfolio, we have a different portfolio than some of our transplant competitors. And if you don't do that, if you just come in and say, that's it across the board, I think that's a mistake.
Setting aside the 62, just focusing on the 35.5, is that something that you think is realistic for 2016?
Yeah, 2016. Yeah, we're gonna make our 2016 goals.
And another question that I have about this, and we've discussed it a lot at Edmunds, is who's going to pay for all this? We've got all the safety. Last week, the backup camera issue came up. Who is going to pay for all this? I mean, can you really pass that along to the consumer?
Yep. I mean, the government. We are the government. That is us. That is we. If we, the people, determine that this is in the best interest of our society, whether it be low carbon emissions or safety standards, then we, the people, are going to pay for it. You can't expect a for-profit organization to say, yeah, I'm going to throw the camera in for all the airbags, and you're going to pay for it. But look at the cars that we grew up with in the 60s and the 50s.
No seatbelts.
They're safer, they're more fuel efficient. It was for the public good. It was for the common good. And sometimes, I mean, that's not a political statement. I think for-profit corporations need a little assist to see through the fog